We got in a little bit late, but we were just talking about how fun the computer is and audio issues, right, Chank?
So nice when you get
Yeah.
everything figured out.
It's fun, right?
And transportation too. There's a lot of road closures getting here today.
It's always the case when you have something going on. Anyhow, so welcome to Typography Dojo. I'm your host, Rachel Elnar, and I'm also the co-founder of TypeEd, Typography Education Program here in Los Angeles. And today we're joined by the very talented Chank Diesel, otherwise known as the traveling font salesman. Do you still go by that or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Actually, I had met you, Chank, while you were traveling through Los Angeles a few months ago, and we stayed in touch ever since.
Yes.
So how are you doing today?
Very well.
Oh, good.
Very well.
Excellent.
Yeah, we got the Minnesota spring is here. In Minnesota, we're known for our lengthy and chilly winters. But that makes all the plants go dormant, and then in the spring they all explode with color. It's unbelievable how surprising and pleasant it is.
Great. Well, but we can't see outside. Where are you inside right now?
I'm at my friends at Clockwork Active Media Systems. They develop websites and apps and all those smart people things, and they've got a nice podcast studio here, and they're old friends, and I used to have an office here.
Excellent. So I just wanted to ask everyone out in the audience today, what is your favorite letter form? I know that everyone has a different one. Chank, do you have one specifically?
Like my favorite glyph?
Yeah, your favorite glyph.
It changes from day to day, but I don't. I just love the lowercase g. How much personality of a font is expressed through the lowercase g is surprising to me.
And does that matter which variation, the single story or double story? No,
it's just a place where I can go to judge. I see that G and I can say, oh, I like it, or oh, I don't like it. That I could get a lot of sense of the flavor of a font through the lowercase g.
That's great. So if you guys have a favorite glyph, please put it into the right on the chat bar, and that would be great just for us to know exactly what your favorite one is. So, Chank, you do have just a couple things to show today. So shall I pull those up and get started? Okay. So
can I ask about the chat bar? Are people saying things yet?
Not yet. We'll just wait. So some people there's like a little tiny bit delay. So we'll see if anyone chats in there. Let me get the screen share going, and you can talk to us about some of these things. And
yeah. That's cool. That's pretty full screen. So this is what I was most excited about last week was Carl Anthony Towns won the Rookie of the Year award for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And to celebrate it, they went out and did a photo shoot with this Rookie of the Year thing that is in a custom font that I made for the Timberwolves. And that font is called Timberwolves Gothic. And they've been using it on all their identity for the last 2 years, and it's exciting to see such a winner supporting my fonts and my fonts supporting the winner next to the Minneapolis skyline. So there's just like 10 or 12 different things I like about this picture.
That's wonderful.
But mostly it's made me feel like a winner to be able to help be a part of such a big accomplishment.
That's great.
Yeah.
And this is a custom font, right? So it's not available to the public?
That's right. This one is just for the Timberwolves right now. That they've got the exclusive license to it. And here, the new image you got here that shows all the stats. That just makes me so incredibly proud of that font. That I knew as a sports team they're going to have a lot of numbers. So the numbers here are distinctive, but they're not cloying or distracting. I think the most distracting number I see here is 8, but it looks a little scrunched, but then you look at it, it makes a real nice X in the middle, and it differentiates itself from like the 6 or the 9. It's different shapes that make that an 8 instead of any other number. So, I mean, even that's okay in my eye. But what I love here is how they've used type in every little bit of the image. It's all type with other imagery added, but it's a really nice specimen of a font that works.
It is really beautiful. I love how the counter of the the top of that 8 is a little bit larger than the bottom. Is that correct?
Oh, is that right? No, I don't know. It
No?
shouldn't be.
Okay.
I think in this font they're just about equal.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe I should start doing them a little bit heavier on top.
That's really nice. The numerals are gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I knew that was something that would be important to them, so I put a little extra work into the numbers on that font.
Excellent. Should I go to the next slide?
Sure. I just got a couple more Timberwolves ones. This shows, just how a custom font can be used nowadays. I make custom fonts for a living, and not a lot of people understand what that is or how it works. But when you see it in practice, it's a bit easier. So it's just whenever they use words on an image at their Facebook page or their Twitter or whatever, they use this font, and it feels like the Timberwolves. It's not so distracting that you're bothered by it, but it feels like their brand. So this is just an image that came out last week that it's all type, but it looks really great, and it speaks of who they are.
So you said that not a lot of people understand how the custom type works. So how do you get a job like this, or how do you get started? What type of input did they give you?
Oh, they just kind of had some sketches of the way it should look, that they made a couple headlines like be a part of the pack, and so they just came up with some basics, and then I rebuilt the rest of the letters from there, and it's real simple and geometric, but the thing that makes this font different is those diagonals, that they just make it look like it's been slashed. It has like an animal went through it and cut it or something, or its fangs. Those little bits of diagonals here and there are what make this font different from every other font out there. But at its root, it's very strong. It's just it's got to be an athletic, strong, heavy lifting font. So there's lots of straight lines and not a lot of little fancy bits. But the diagonals mark it as theirs. And so, I've just been doing this for 20 years now. I've been making custom fonts for corporate clients, and I know how to do it because I've been doing it for so long. But most of my clients, it's the first font they've ever had developed for themselves. There aren't a lot of repeat customers. So I kind of created my own niche. It's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be, I wanted to make rocks. Yeah, custom fonts for great companies and people.
It's great. Do you usually do different weights for them? How does that work?
Yeah, usually. I mean, I do a lot of handwriting fonts, and that's usually just a handwriting font where they draw a specimen and I turn it into a font for them in a single weight. But, in the instance of, you can go to the next page here.
Okay, great.
Boom.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see the regular and the bold there. And that's through their Timberwolves Gothic being used as the web font on the mobile site. And they use it all throughout their website, too. So it's not just for headlines and stuff. You can actually, they use it through a lot of the links and other things on the website. And so they knew when they're, working on this. This identity was designed by Little and Company in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And, they knew they needed a regular, a medium, and a bold. And I think I made italics for all of them, too. So, it's designers knowing what they need in their repertoire that helps me get the job done.
Right.
And yeah, for a good brand, you need at least 4 fonts, I think, to really, make the font work in a variety of different sizes and applications.
Right. So is this typeface, is it also for reading copy, or is it mostly just for headlines?
Mostly headlines and, I'm sorry, I don't have more of the website here, but the little buttons you click on and little synopsises of stories. And then they used a different text font for, the really wordy sections that they have. But they use it a lot in the videos too. So the interstitial title sheets that they show on the videos. They use that font a lot there too.
It's very exciting. It's nice work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really love how it looks.
And this one I think is just as simple. I mean, that Timberwolves font works, and it's so clean and simple and direct. And this is too, but it's not strong. This one's got more bends to it. It's got more focus on the lowercase letters, and it's for PBS Kids. And so this is from their Facebook page. This is something I did directly with PBS Kids. And again, this is a very exclusive custom font that's just for them. And it's for the Cinco de Mayo down there on the bottom. And it was part of their redesign that they did a couple of years ago. And that's my favorite kind of client. This is my dream client that I got to work for. I think I did about 6 or 8 fonts for this project. But it's a wonderful nonprofit that has a good cause, and it works with kids, and they have millions of dollars too, you know, thanks to viewers like you.
That always helps.
Yeah, so that's my perfect client, and it's a font that's almost as simple, but it's more childlike. Instead of being sporty and strong, it's childlike and fun, but not too fun because, you know, you got to be able to read it. I think we've got more pictures on the next page. Yeah, so this one, you don't even really notice it. It just kind of walks by and speaks to you in a familiar, comfortable voice and tells you what show is on next, and in a friendly, approachable typeface. And I like here where it's a lot less busy. They use it a bit more sparingly than the Timberwolves do, because they've got such nice illustrations to work with, and just those big color fields they like on PBS Kids, I think, are so delightful. It's a nice space to show fonts in. And
the illustrations work really well with your font.
Right. Yeah. This is the illustrations are by Chris Bishop. He's amazing. And he works at PBS Kids, and he redesigned everything for them. With all his own illustrations, and so he's a good designer and a good illustrator, and his main hobby activity is playing video games. So he designs a lot of video game like Mario Karts and stuff like that too. And he does fine art too, but Chris Bishop did all these drawings, and I was able to see those as I was working on the font, so I can make a font that complemented his drawings nicely.
It's really nicely done.
Thanks. I got one more picture of that, I think.
And your favorite glyph, G, is in here.
Yeah,
really nice G.
So we had to connect to the children, you know. So we used the letter forms that they teach you in kindergarten. So that's a what I call a hook G instead of a loop G. So on the bottom of the lowercase g, there's a little hook as we're taught to draw it. And likewise, the A in Daniel is a single story A instead of a double decker A. And that's, you know, to reference the letter forms that kindergartners are taught to draw, so they'd be able to read it. So this font is for kindergartners primarily, you know, and first graders.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And there again, it's local, you know. It's so joyous to me to see. I don't have any pictures. I wish I had pictures. They're using my font at my local co-op and my local farmers market for their logos for both of them. So, but here's PBS Kids in the Twin Cities here with the cherry spoon and my font and Chris Bishop's drawings. And yeah, so that's just, that's my dream project right there.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. This is not PBS, is it, Chank?
No. This is Minneapolis Airport, the MSP Airport. This is something I haven't published at the website yet. I haven't really told anybody about, but they're starting to show up as they renovate. I think they have 70 sets of bathrooms at the airport, and as they renovate them into this new design, they're using a new custom font that I created with Allianz, is a architecture firm in town here who works on the airport project. And I like this because it's a non-traditional application of type. They've stacked the letters instead of, you know, spelling out words normally. They're kind of stacked letters. And each restroom comes with a local mosaic, a scene of local Minnesota landscape done by a local mosaic artist. So there's local art involved in every place that this font is being used in the restrooms. And it's going to be used in more places throughout the airport in the years to come as they complete renovations and change things, as they always do. But the next sheet has the women's room, I think. Yep.
That's a wonderful project.
Yeah. And I'm getting more and more into that now. I think they call it experiential graphic design, creating spaces and wayfinding systems, the words we see as we're moving around the world every day. And this was just, there's a million bazillion sans serif fonts out there. There are lots to choose from. But when you start using them in an application like this, you realize, oh, that one's wrong. That one's wrong. That one's wrong. And they came to me and they said, Chank, we're trying to stack these letters to make these words, and none of the fonts work. And can you help us with that? And this was my solution. Letters that are meant to stack well. The next page has one more picture of the airport. Yeah, so, I mean, the M and the W are in the words men and women, and those are really wide. So I brought them in a little bit, and I made the other characters a bit wider, so that when you stack them, they won't fall over,
So they're all equal width?
No,
okay.
That would be... I don't like monospace fonts, and I think it would take away from the character of the letters. The M should be a little bit wider than a capital I, that they're approximately the same width, So you still get some sense of, how we read words. We see a wide M or a wide W and a round O, these things that help define what a letter is, they still can come through in some way a little bit, but I altered them just a bit so that they would hold together as a form when stacked up like that.
Awesome.
Thank you. Did
you also do the letter forms that are underneath the icons on the right?
No.
Okay, those are separate. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not part of the project.
That's not part of this particular project, but those new bathrooms are really nice. They got nice sinks and toilets and tiles and things like that. Nice to be a part of such clean restrooms.
Yes, of course. Love clean facilities.
Yeah. And this is a really exciting partnership with Gemini, a company that makes metal letters for the sides of buildings. They're the industry leader in that kind of three-dimensional exterior signage. And they've licensed a set of fonts from me, 10 fonts that are available as cast metal. So you can get them in bronze or aluminum to last on the side of your building forever. Yeah, I've got some of those in the studio here with me, but
okay. Do you have them with you?
I'll show those later.
Okay.
Later. Or can I show them now?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they're made from metal cast. Is that, you hear that clanging? They're really heavy. But I've always loved dimensional letters. It's such a joy for me to see my two-dimensional shapes turned into three-dimensional real things and manufactured by professional fabricators who are really good at it. I'm an artist, and the artists don't always make the best manufacturers. So I love the serif on this. Let's see if we can get it. Whoa.
Can you guys see those details? I can see them, but I'm just checking to see if everyone can see those details.
I'm probably moving too fast. I always move too fast, but it's a very nice serif there.
Well, it's really nice.
And that's a futuristic semi-serif font. We don't have enough of those. This is an old-fashioned font called Fairbanks, inspired by Douglas Fairbanks's 1914 silent film, The Good Bad Man. But it's very exciting. Gemini likes working with me, and I'm excited to learn more about this experiential graphic design. SEGD, the Society for Experiential Graphic Design, is the nonprofit that they work with that connects all these people that aren't architects and they're not designers. They're wayfinders and sign makers.
Right.
And it's a very specialized kind of skill. And they're having their national conference in Seattle in early June. So I'm going out for that.
Oh, great.
So I'm excited I'll be at the Gemini booth. I got an example of their fonts. That's the next page.
Okay.
In the PDF.
Okay. So these metal letters, let me just zoom in here. So these metal letters, how many different typefaces did you produce them in?
That's the next page.
Okay, thank you. There we go.
Yeah, maybe you can zoom in on that. But I call it the Gemini type font pack, and it features 10 fonts. And they were culled from my collection of about 350 fonts. Mm-hmm. And they found the ones that would work best in that dimensional type form. So they're mostly those rigid geometric fonts that are semi-condensed and just
I guess that they wouldn't be able to produce thinner ones because it would pretty much fall apart in the mold, right?
Yeah, part of it would fall apart in the mold. The other part would fall apart once you install it and there's shadows or lights, So they having 50 years experience in the field, they know what kinds of fonts will look good as three-dimensional letters. And so they went through and pulled those from my library, and then I customized them for them just a little bit to make sure that they didn't have any of those little, delicate bits that would break when they molded them. And so they all have the GT prefix for Gemini type in their name, but I'm excited because they're all I get to offer all the web types. So if you get the signs made for the outside of your building, you can also get the font for web type for your business too.
Now that is really truly cross media, transmedia fonts, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Printed and 3D and also online. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's something I'm real proud of.
Yeah. So there's some people who are putting into the chat bar now. Let's see. Waze is on. I think he's from Manhattan. I remember Waze, if I'm not correct, but you're from Monotype in Manhattan. And then Kat says, yes, there he is. And then Kat says there's a gorgeous dimensional serif there. And then Ari from Type Kit is on, and she says, hi. It's nice to see the three-dimensional letters. And I see you're responding as well. Excellent. Wonderful. Shall we go to the next page?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, Prince. This is the artist formerly known as Prince. And it blows my mind that he used my fonts as often as he did. And there are two of my fonts here. The word this is from Prince's first website. He had about 20 websites over the years. And this is the splash page from his first website, which was called The Dawn. And that's my font Buckethead for the Dawn. It's got a real jaunty T that looks like it's dancing. And I think there might be an eyeball in the middle of the O. And then the word in the middle of his glyph there, that's it's got weird descenders. The T goes down below the baseline, the one of the H, and that's my font Luncheonette. So there are two of my very earliest fonts that he used there. Can we turn the page?
Yeah, of course.
And so this is how he found them. I used to work at a music magazine, and that's where I started making the fonts. I made the fonts for myself to use in the music magazine. And people liked him so much, I ended up starting my own business that was just fonts. But there came a point where he was using this glyph for his name back then, and it was frustrating to me to use other people's fonts for his name. So I went through all of my fonts that I used in the magazine, and I added his glyph to every one of them.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't really ask permission. I thought it was such a distinctive glyph. I thought it should be in every font, because he's so amazing that I was the first one to say, hey, we should put his glyph in every font. So I did. And then Paisley Park bought my complete font library from me. And it turns out he liked them. So he started using them on his record covers. So that's an old mail order ad from a magazine in the 1990s where Paisley Park filled out the form and sent in a check, and then I mailed them a floppy disk, and they started using the fonts.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so I started my foundry. I I mean, not with metal type or wood type, but it was a different time back then, sending floppy disks through the mail.
Do you still have those floppies?
Yeah, they're all over the place. I'm looking for the floppy. I got one of those floppies that had his glyph on it. You know, He sent that out to the press back in the day when he changed his name, and I got one of those, and I think I have one of those somewhere, and I keep going through my old boxes trying to find it. And I worry that it might have been lost in the great floppy purge of 2003.
Okay, let me go to the next page here.
Yeah, that's just some of the Prince glyphs in use on his record covers. So the Raven, Joy Fantastic on top there is my own. The crystal ball on the top right is Chank font. The word, my Time Sans font for the word emancipation, original glyph there. And then Prince the Vault, Old Friends for Sale, that record, he uses my Moonshine font, but not a glyph. And then on the bottom one, it's called Chaos and Disorder, and he used my font called Krusty there. So that's... it's so joyful and that Prince would use my fonts. And the only really sad part is that it was kind of in between Purple Rain and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There was this period in the 90s where people weren't listening to him too much.
Oh.
And that's when he was using my fonts a lot. But I was paying attention. I was there. The next page shows some of the glyphs, that I went through one of my fonts and added his glyph as if it was just another letter of the alphabet. And so that's some of them there. He had a lot to choose from.
Oh, wow, definitely. Whatever mood he felt like in that day, he would just choose one.
Yeah.
There's enough to do that. And you also have some metallic versions.
Yeah, you got to have the italics for when he's running.
Right.
And then I think there's one more Prince picture. Nope, that was it. All right, well,
One thing I did want to ask about Prince, though, is that you did see him around town, right? Because you live in the same town that he lives in. I see. Okay. So that helps that he was local.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how these things all work, but I mean, he was supportive of local artists, local musicians. I mean, the Minnesota sound, the Minneapolis sound is what he's known for. Mm-hmm. That Minneapolis has always been very important to him, and he's such a huge part of this place. And yeah, that was part of the magic of Minneapolis, is whenever you would go out, there was a chance you'd run into Prince because he was a person who was actually in town. And it's like there were a few times where he was at the club where I was, but people would be like, oh, there he goes, there's Prince, but then he's gone because he's kind of small and he goes through the crowd really fast, and it's like, oh, I missed him again, and there was time where I saw him play a few of those, secret late night pop-up shows that he did at his old club and at Paisley Park. And while we were waiting for him to take the stage, he was there. And he's just sitting by the soundboard with a lollipop, and mm-hmm. I can't go up and say hi or anything. I got nothing to say to Prince, but I looked at him, my peripheral vision. I was like, oh my God, there he is.
Did he have a lot of bodyguards, or was there people around him all the time, or?
No, his presence was usually enough, It's just kind of like, oh my God, there he is. And like the crowds would part and then he'd hop on his motorcycle and drive away really fast, So mostly he took care of himself. I wasn't around so much in 84, 85, 86, Purple Rain and all that stuff where he did need bodyguards probably. Mm-hmm. In the 90s, he was approachable in that he was there, but inapproachable in that he was mythical at that point already.
What I find interesting about Minneapolis is that there's such a strong art and design and musical culture there that everyone supports each other. I love that you guys have that in your town.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things I like about Minneapolis, but that is the root of it, is that we are not haters. We like each other. We like working together. We like collaborating. And And there are artists and there are designers, and those are different people. And sometimes there are artists who are designers, and sometimes there are designers who are artists. But they all have good parties, and they mingle and they talk and they appreciate each other as people and for the work they do.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I mean, I noticed that even the Timberwolves campaign was done by Little & Co., which is in Minneapolis. Does that happen to you often? Do you get a lot of commissions from design firms in town?
Yeah. No, there was a time when I tried to leave Minneapolis. In the early days of the internet, we figured we could do anything. We could work anywhere, right? So I tried to move to Kentucky. And oh boy, did there's still a north-south thing. There's a prejudice, and they just rolled their eyes when I said I was going to Kentucky. They thought I was just the stupidest thing in the world. But the deal fell through, and I didn't end up moving. But I did learn that there is a lot about your connections in the real world, the geography of where you are as to what kind of jobs you end up with and how people perceive you. And what kind of companies are available to work with, and people do like locals, I mean, it's good to eat local. It's good to listen to your local music. It's, there's all kinds of things that people like locally. And design is one of them, and font design. But luckily I'm also a specialist, in that, I do something nobody else can do. So I work with people in New York and California and Seattle a lot too.
But are your fonts inspired by your environment in Minneapolis?
Absolutely. I got lots of examples of that. A lot of, dimensional signage and hand-painted things from the early 20th century, mid 20th century. Landmarks that became fonts, like the Parkway Theater in town here yielded the Parkway Motel font. The Fauché building is downtown with the huge word Fauché in light up bulbs on top, and I made a Fauché font out of that. My liquor store font is my favorite font, and that was named after a liquor store in the neighborhood here.
That makes sense.
That has a really nice neon sign, So yeah, the local, and I went to New Orleans. I go to a place like New Orleans, and I don't see any of my fonts there. It's just like a different town, a different flavor, different spices, and they use a lot of that Old English script down there, and we don't see that in Minneapolis.
It's a totally different culture.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's go back to this. Here you go.
I wish we had okay. Here we go. This is just the new font in progress. I got a new employee. Her name is Nicolasi Zhang, and she is working on this. She made the capital letters here, and it's fun. It's lighthearted. It's I think the next page has capital letters, capital words. If you want, can you zoom in on any of those? It's all uniform in its stroke weight, so it's very constructed in a way to look good on screen, because the stroke weight of every letter is going to have about the same width, But there's a lot of curve to it, a lot of bend, and the way the letters relate to each other is kind of idiosyncratic and irregular.
Let me see if I can zoom in here. Nope, not too much.
That's about all you can get. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Here we go. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, I want to pinch. I'm trying to pinch my screen to make it bigger.
Sorry. I'm working at it here.
Can you see that? Can you see that MS combination? Yeah. You see how the M kind of goes underneath the S and S curls up. There are a lot of interesting little combinations that come up through letters that exceed their. Right. Hey, that's cool. We can go on to the next one. Okay. I just wanted to, that's just a little something that we're working on. That's her first font.
Great.
For herself. And then, I'm having a party next month. My 20th anniversary is coming up next month, and I just picked the date and the venue. So that's exciting. And that where you see it says Norseman Distillery down at the bottom, that's Nicolasi's new letters in that new font. It's very free flowing, but it's legible too.
Yeah.
And you were talking about that top-heavy 8. You know, here, look at that capital E. You see how it's much bigger on the top of the E?
You're talking about on this one down here? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so that's just really dramatic when an E would normally be kind of bottom-heavy, but that one's got more space up on top. And links into the R there nicely, too.
I love the R and the K as well. I'll just go back here and take a look at the... You have an alternate glyph right there.
Yeah, we're going to have a whole bunch of them, you know. So we're just trying to design the basic first phase of this font. She's going to redo the lowercase. I don't know what the lowercase is going to look like. But once we get all the basics down, we can start doing a lot more swash characters and ligatures and stylistic alternates or contextual alternates. So we're excited to make it. And it's tough to make something that's original with 75,000 other fonts out there. But I feel like this one really is what naturally comes out of her. You know, this is her typeface that is different just through all those weird swooshes, the curves.
And this will be part of the Chank library, right?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll finish that up this summer.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing those. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and use the questions and topics tab underneath. I already see there's one question so far.
Is there a question?
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you right now. Just a couple questions. First of all, so how do you start your process in designing type? We've had a couple type designers on so far, and they have different processes in terms of how they're inspired. What inspires you to start a typeface, first of all?
Well, my earliest typefaces were based upon a word, you know, like a hand-drawn logo from the 1930s or 1940s. I started with the Lambretta scooter logo.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, you get a capital L and about 5 other letters. Can you make the rest of the alphabet based upon that clue, you know? And that's just like a puzzle to me. That's pure fun to say, how would I make the rest of the alphabet based upon these 5 letters? Mm-hmm. And I did that with a couple other, you know, like the Parkway Theater was a capital P and a lowercase Arkway is what I had to start with. So I did that a few times. And, you know, but then it's like I tried the Vespa scooter logo. And I could not make that font, you know, it was just way too hard, and I still never have. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But so there's that historic aspect where I don't feel like that's ripping off because they weren't font designers and they're not alive or working anymore. And I just kind of use their work as a starting point to make the rest of the alphabet. So you
you looked at these word marks. They were typically drawn by hand, logo marks, customized, and you thought, what would it look like if the whole alphabet was developed? That was the challenge, right? Okay.
Yeah, and how could I use that in my designs?
Right.
You know, well, I need all the other letters. So I started as a designer. I consider myself a failed designer,
mm-hmm.
Because it just turns out that I make fonts better than I make publications or logos or posters. So I failed as a designer, but I ended up being really good as a specialist in making fonts. The liquor store font, you know, I saw the liquor store sign and that looked good, but mostly there I liked the name. I wanted to make a font called Liquor Store that said, you know, it's purely utilitarian. If you can see it and read it and it says liquor, people will come in.
Yes, that's that's good psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes the name comes first. Now I'm working on a text face. I'm working on a Roman text face because I haven't done that yet. So as I've made, you know, probably over 600 fonts. I mean, there are 300 that I offer for sale now, but I made hundreds of fonts. So now I'm just trying to make one that's different from those 400, 500 fonts. And I've never made a Roman serif text face, and I'm working on that now because I think that's something that would be very useful going forward, that there is not a clear winner yet in sans serif versus serif when it comes to reading columns of text on your phone. We know it's going to be on a phone and an iPad, and it's not so much on paper anymore, but we still don't know if people are going to be reading serif or sans serif, that people like the option of both. So I'm making a nice serif text font.
And so out of the 600 fonts that you've developed, they're only display?
Well, there's the Adriana font family is about 40 fonts now, and that's a sans serif text family that I've been working on for a long time. And that works as a text font. There are some other ones, but yeah, I do a lot of headlines.
And they're really nice.
And the handwriting fonts, they're used for like intruders, like little explosion bubbles inside of designs. It's like new. That's me. So there's not a real set process for making fonts. That I'm one of the most prolific font designers out there, along with Ray Larrabee or something. These people that just make, I made another week, another font, So I draw from lots of different sources. Some people are like, hey, I got to make a font for the Bible, and I've got to study 600 Latin documents and come up with the perfect serif text face, and I'm going to spend the next 20 years working on it. And that's not my jam.
Yeah, your fonts are much more fun. I mean, definitely much more expressive, the way that I've seen your work.
Yes, that's my shtick.
So your inspiration initially was the signage, which I love because you're pulling a lot of culture. I mean, the cultures comes along with that typeface. Do you design type that's just out of the blue? I mean, do you look at a blank page and then you just see something?
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the reasons I was showing Nicolazzi's font, that there's no purpose or, exclusive thing other than that's what comes out of her hand. That's what the shapes that she makes naturally. So I do a lot of collaborative work. That's a great way for me to get the process going, that there are a lot of people that have ideas for fonts, but no ideas how to make them. They can draw a few letters, but they can't draw a whole alphabet. So I've done dozens and dozens of collaborative fonts with other artists and designers. And there I get to just be the technical guy, and the closer, it's like I know how to finish a project. I know how to finish a font because I've done it so many times. Yeah. And, as I am a rabble rouser, a non-traditionalist, somebody who like all my fonts were made by breaking the rules in different ways, So now I'm working on a serif text font that I'm trying to make really boring. It's like, here's a challenge for me. I'm going to try and make something that's really normal and useful and will appeal to everybody. And of course, you can't set out to make Helvetica or Comic Sans. It's like fonts that take over the world do it through the people.
Of course,
it's not the intent of the designer.
So the tools, what tools do you use? Do you start with pencil and paper?
I work with pencil and paper a lot. I do drawings and I number each one, and I'm always working towards getting that human element into fonts. That's important to me. So I'm a lefty, so my handwriting is more human than most. But I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. So, do you use any pens? Is there any other special tools that you use to get your forms, or do you work mostly in a digital space?
I like the Uniball Vision a lot.
Awesome. That's a great tool, actually.
It's a uniform stroke weight. It's a very nice black ink. It doesn't skip like a ballpoint because it's a roller ball instead of a ballpoint. I've been using this one for many, many years, and they're still available. I'm glad they still make them. That's my favorite drawing tool. And then my second favorite is the pencil because you can erase it and you can do grayscales. So I use those are really my two favorite when working on paper. And Finding the paper I like too. There's a Strathmore writing paper that comes in a cover stock that you hold the paper with one hand and you draw with the other. The moisture that comes out of your hand will make a lightweight paper wobble, So I like the cardstocks because they stay nice and flat. So I like a cardstock Strathmore paper and a Uniball Vision after I've done the pencil sketches. And that's my favorite way to work. But often I work right in Font Lab.
Okay.
Or Fontographer. A lot of times I'll draw pictures of the way I want fonts to look and kind of sketch them out and erase them and move them around with my left hand and then look at it and then rebuild it all from scratch on the computer because that allows the coordinates to be perfect straight lines and all those things. But Fontographer is my industry standard tool for making fonts. Fontographer, I said Font Lab, right?
Fontographer, you said Fontographer twice. But so you're saying Font Lab is the Font Lab.
They're made by the same company.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah. And Fontographer is what I learned on. And it's kind of a mid-grade font making app. And then Font Lab is higher end and allows for more capabilities for special open type features and Unicode support.
I thought you were going to say unicorn support. So I thought, wow, that's awesome.
Unicorn support through Font Lab. 65,000 different kinds of unicorns you could put into a font now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I like the interface better on Fontographer. It's cheaper. It costs about $300. Font Lab costs about $600, I think. And it does what needs to be done to make fonts really great. And then they've got an entry-level tool, too, called Type Tool.
Type Tool, that's right.
Yes, and I believe that's $99. And all those come with demos that you can try out. I've tried RoboFont.
Yeah, RoboFont.
Yeah. I took a class from Jeremy Mickle on how to do it. And I don't get it. I don't like it. I understand it. I really like some of the kerning tools there, but mostly I'm uncomfortable in that software. And the new one is Glyphs, which is a very friendly interface and very easy to approach, but I don't know how that one works either. But I've tried it. I keep trying them. But I keep going back to Font Lab. Font Lab, yeah.
It's your go-to. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. So, guys, if there's any other questions, let's put them underneath the questions and topics tab. We've got one, so let's answer this one here. It's from David Allen. He asks, how did you become inspired by type?
How did I become inspired by type? It was through Sesame Street, of course. I was born in 1969, and that was the same year Sesame Street launched. And so they've been there my whole life, and that's where they teach us to spell words. That's where each episode is sponsored by a letter of the alphabet. That's, and then they'd show that letter in a variety of contexts throughout an episode. And that was my first and favorite place to see fonts. But then in the 80s, I played a lot of video games, like Super Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong and Frogger and all that stuff. So there, the bitmap feature made the grid really a big part of what a font was, so that was a really big influence, was all the video games of the 80s. And then I don't know. I mean, those are my two biggest influences. And comic books, I guess. Yeah, I read a lot of comic books. I was, Marvel, not DC. But I collected a lot of Silver Age comics and read a lot of X-Men back in the day. And just, those special effects and the drop shadows and the starbursts around letters and things like that, the cartoon nature of comic books really was a big influence too. So
you must have done a lot of drawing when you were young.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I did. Yeah, I drew patterns. I just drew like circles over and over and over again. And just and I did. There was a time in high school where I did a flyer for a punk band, a punk rock show that had like 15 bands, and I drew a different typeface for every band's name, and that was a full day of fun for me. That's when I knew I really liked drawing words, drawing letters to make words. But also because I was a lefty, I was held after school in 6th grade because my handwriting was so bad. And that was very calming to me. After everybody else left the school and they were just like the kids that couldn't write very well were held in a classroom together afterwards, and we had to practice writing. It was very calming to me, after the buses went away and the screaming stopped, it calmed down, and I was able to just practice letters. And that was like some of my happiest times in 6th grade. So that's how I ended up making so many handwriting fonts, I think, is because I make everybody's handwriting better. And because I was held back after school because my handwriting was so bad, I was like, I'll show them, I'll become the best handwriter ever.
And you did. Your handwriting for a lot of people.
But I can never be a calligrapher. That calligraphers use their right hand to pull the quill across the page, and a lefty pushes the quill. And the way our letter forms are constructed are made for right-handers. And I've tried and tried and tried, and I cannot do calligraphy.
Interesting.
When I draw letters, I draw the outlines of the letters, instead of drawing the broad strokes, I draw the outside shapes of the letters because that's the way my mind works.
That's a great story. Great story.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Glad I could contribute something today. Are there? I don't see the questions.
They're underneath. They're underneath, but there are no more. So if anyone has any questions, please contribute. I have a couple questions myself.
Oh, good.
Okay, just a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. So first of all, what are your most successful fonts? Do you know?
Well, now it's going to be Liquor Store finally. Early on, my most successful was my first successful font was Mr. Frisky, and that came with an alternate character set named Uncle Stinky.
That's a great name.
And these two fonts work together for when you had double letters. So you could substitute one and it would make it jump around and make it look kind of bouncy. But that font was used on the Prince's Crystal Ball record cover. It was for the James and the Giant Peach, which was a Tim Burton film. So that was awesome. And it was used on Barbie doll packaging. And it was used on the word grape in Welch's Sparkling Grape Soda, which is the official drink of litter bugs. So maybe you've seen that like discarded in a gutter somewhere, the word grape on Welch's Sparkling Grape Soda. That was one of mine with the Mr. Frisky font back in the day. And McDonald's used that font. Lots of people use that font. Taco Bell. Wow. So I kind of became the fast food font king, and I didn't like that so much. So I'm happy to hear the co-ops and the farmers markets are using my fonts more now.
And how do you know that? How can you measure the success? Is it by how many people are purchasing it, or is it when you see it out in the wild?
Yeah, for me, it's when I see it out in the wild. Yeah, that's when it really makes an impression. I don't keep track of my sales figures as close as I used to. But I do have some. Until a big client buys all my fonts for all their designers, then I love them. Oh, yeah, now I got Liquor Store, which has been my favorite font for a long time because it works really well from like 8-point on up to 400 points. So it'll work like in the fine print or on posters or on the sides of buses. But now that one was used for the author's name on the Hunger Games.
It's great.
Series. So that was awesome, but it was also used for the World Series logo last fall. So it said World Series, and that was in the Liquor Store font. That looked great. And I just saw it on Daredevil season 2 on Netflix was using it, I think.
That's great.
it keeps popping up here and there, and it's a very straightforward geometric font that you might not notice as mine, but I do. I always recognize my fonts because of the mistakes in them, that I still see the little tiny things that are wrong, little kerning problems, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that AT again. Oh,
You are a true designer.
A is over here and the T is over here. There's like a river going through it.
You're a true designer. That's great.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a little bit about the MLB project? No?
I don't. There's not much I can say about it. I wanted to talk about it. That's why I got to send out the press release. But it's just I got to finish those designs so I can show them to people. I can't really talk.
You can't talk about, but it's going to be released soon. Is it something that we can look forward to watching?
Yeah, they'll be coming out within the next year or two.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I'll send out press releases when those are all done. I'm sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you're working on now that we can keep an eye on?
Yeah, well, there's the serif font that I'm excited about. Mm-hmm. That's coming later this summer. Quicker than that is Nicolasi's font. Mm-hmm. I want to finish that one soon. Well, the airport font that's coming out at the restrooms at the airport in Minneapolis.
Near you.
I want to, a thing I'll be showing a Salesforce font soon that's really exciting. That's a really nice cursive. It's just beautiful. They used it for the convention last year, but I haven't gotten all the pictures yet. So, no, I want to. I'm working on public art a lot this summer. I'm working on some mural sites in Minneapolis. And I'm working to promote those Gemini fonts. I'm really proud of those. Those are all very useful. I don't have a lot of new fonts coming out real soon, but they show up sometimes. I mean, they just show up all the time now. Every time I go to the record, well, there's no record stores anymore, but
iTunes, I think that they call it now.
Yeah. Well, they don't really show many fonts at iTunes, but the bookstore, when I go to the bookstores, every time I go to the bookstore, I see a new book that uses my fonts, and that's exciting. I love my book customers. Just in the stores, I mean, it just blows my mind how often these fonts get used. It's trippy to me that all my fonts are used in the future. I always, I'm working on a Roman serif font now that will be used in the future. I don't always know what my fonts are going to be used for, and that's the real exciting part to me, is to see them pop up in places unexpectedly.
That is fun. The Gemini stuff. Where can we purchase those if we want to get?
I don't even know. I'm trying to figure that out. So they're I think they're sign makers. They go through third parties, resellers.
Okay.
So Gemini is a wholesaler that goes to the resellers, and the resellers, I think, are like the sign makers. So, like I said, it's a very different kind of industry in that there are architects and there's Gemini making the signs, but there's somebody in between that helps the architects pick the designs that get installed. So anybody who works with that dimensional signage is the ones who can buy those letters.
Great.
But Gemini, I think it's Gemini Sign Products. Well, there's a link at my website.
There is? Here, let me see if I can find a link. Meanwhile, Jason said he just lost sound. Jason, can you hear me? Let's see here. Let's see.
Check. Oh, is it?
I can hear you, so I don't know what's going on. Let me find. So Gemini Sign Products. Let's see here. Yes, I find it here. So what I'm going to do is I'll just put that link into the chat.
Make sure that's the right one. Let me make sure that's the right one.
It looks like it. Yeah, dimensional. There you go. So if you guys are interested, you can check out Gemini there.
They've got a really thick catalog that's got a lot of information. It's on paper, but if you fill out the free catalog form at their website, they can send you that, and you can see all the different substrates and surfaces. The top of the line is their cast metal letters, but they also do a lot of three-dimensional molded plastic letters. Mm-hmm. So all my fonts are available in those mediums too. And I want to say that it's not plastic. It's they call it cellulosics. It's all plant-based material with lots of pigments added to it. But these plastic letters that they've been making for 50 years are made out of plant material. They're not petroleum. And they all come with a lifetime guarantee not to break. And then if they break, they'll replace them. And you send back your broken letter and they grind it up and they can reuse it to make more letters. You know, they can, it's recyclable as well as durable.
Very sustainable letters. That's great.
They're based in Minnesota too, and we met. You know, I spoke to the SEGD local chapter, and that's how I met Gemini's, because they were sponsoring the event, and they're about an hour outside of the Twin Cities, but they've got manufacturing facilities in 19 locations across the U.S. So that was really neat to again make a local connection with somebody that's working on a national level.
It's really such a good idea.
What? I hope so.
The dimensional letters. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see them on houses and buildings everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So taking the fonts into new dimensions, literally, I'm excited about that. And the next thing I want to start working on is more animated letters. And I hope they're not too annoying, but you know, things that you can use in After Effects for videos where letters bounce in across the page, you know. I'd like to do some custom animations of my existing fonts and offer those to those people.
That's awesome.
So
love the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All over. So take a look, guys, at the link right below our video to check out Chank Fonts. And Chank, thanks for talking with us. I'm just glad to hear all the things that you're up to, and we'll be watching all the great projects that you're going. I mean, I have a whole list here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad I could talk about all that's going on over here, because nobody understands it. It's very weird.
Well, it's good to know. I hope that you'll update your website soon so we can take a look at some of the new projects that are coming out.
Super. I'll be there.
Okay. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.